Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Rain was pouring down on the city that evening, making the streets deserted and slippery. In a narrow alley, a young boy, obviously poor, shivered beneath his threadbare coat. His eyes, however, shone with a determination few adults possessed. Before him stood a man in an immaculate black suit, his expression hard but his eyes attentive, a billionaire known for his colossal wealth and business power. The boy took a deep breath. "I know how to save your daughter," he said, his voice shaky but firm. His words hit the billionaire like a clap of thunder. The seconds ticked by in icy silence. The billionaire, accustomed to the fact that money and power could resolve any situation, felt doubt creeping in for the first time. How could a boy with no resources or influence hold the key to saving his only daughter, kidnapped by dangerous and unknown individuals? "Explain yourself," the man ordered, his voice thick with authority and concern. The boy looked down for a moment, then looked up, staring straight into the man's eyes. "I know where they're holding her. And I know how to get in, without attracting their attention. But I can't do it alone." For the first time, the billionaire felt the weight of the real world pressing down on him, a world where money wasn't enough. In that alley, in the pouring rain, two destinies, so different yet so similar, would intertwine in a race against time. The rain had stopped, but the streets remained damp and bright under the fluorescent lights. Billionaire Jonathan Reed stepped out of the alley, his face etched with worry. He couldn't bring himself to abandon his daughter, Emily, who had been missing for 2 days. Every minute counted, and the police seemed overwhelmed by the complexity of the case. The boy, sitting on the sidewalk, pulled a yellowed notebook from his pocket. "Look," he said, handing the sheet to Jonathan. Clumsy but accurate sketches depicted an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. "That's where they keep her," he murmured. Jonathan frowned. The place looked deserted on official maps and the information he'd obtained. "And how could you know that?" he asked, the tension in his voice betraying his fear. "My brother works for them," the boy replied, looking down in shame. "But I can help you. I know when they're less vigilant, when the guards are making their rounds." Jonathan remained silent, weighing the risks. Trusting a poor, unknown, and vulnerable boy to save his daughter defied logic. And yet, something in her eyes, that determination and knowledge of the terrain, pushed him to listen. "Very well," Jonathan said finally, his voice firm. "But if we fail," he didn't finish his sentence. The boy nodded. He knew the risks. But he was ready to face them, because for him, saving Emily wasn't just a mission, it was a matter of justice, courage, and perhaps redemption. So, against all odds, an unlikely alliance was born, that of a billionaire ready to do anything for his daughter, and a poor but cunning boy, who held a secret that no one else knew. The next morning, Jonathan and the boy, named Marcus, found themselves near the abandoned warehouse. The gray light of dawn bathed the dilapidated buildings, giving the place an eerie appearance. Marcus held a small bag in his hand, containing a few rudimentary but effective tools for their mission. "Listen carefully," Marcus said, his voice low but firm. "There are 2 main entrances. The guards change positions every hour. If we wait until the right moment, we can get in unseen." Jonathan nodded, fear and adrenaline racing in his mind. Emily was inside, and every second counted. The billionaire felt his heart race when he saw the silhouettes of the guards patrolling outside the warehouse. Marcus advanced cautiously, indicating for Jonathan to hide behind a stack of pallets. "We need to go through that side door. It's rarely guarded." The boy pulled out a small lock-picking tool, his hands shaky but precise. Within seconds, the door gave way. They entered the building silently. Darkness enveloped them, pierced only by rays of light coming from broken windows. Muffled sounds echoed through the vast warehouse, the rattling of chains, whispers, and distant footsteps. Suddenly, a guard turned and approached their hiding place. Jonathan held his breath, his face contorted. Marcus placed a finger to his lips, and they both remained motionless, like statues. The guard passed by without noticing them, and Jonathan let out a sigh of relief. "We're almost there," Marcus murmured. "But there will be one last test." Deep inside the warehouse, chains clanged. Emily was there, trapped, but someone was watching her. Danger was becoming imminent, and every step Jonathan took could jeopardize their plan. Jonathan and Marcus moved cautiously through the warehouse. The distant chains clanging were the only clue that Emily was close, but even the slightest misstep could alert the kidnappers. They finally reached the door to the room where she was locked up. Through a small window, they saw Emily tied to a chair, her face marked by fear but also by hope at the sight of Marcus. Two guards were talking right in front of her, laughing menacingly. Marcus leaned toward Jonathan and whispered, "We need to distract them. I can open the door just enough so they don't see us, but you'll have to act quickly." Jonathan took a deep breath. The thought of fighting armed men seemed insurmountable, but he had no choice. With a sign, Marcus made a soft noise at the other end of the corridor, attracting the guards' attention. The two men turned and headed toward the noise. Jonathan took the opportunity and opened the door, silently advancing towards Emily. He quickly untied her, his hands shaky but efficient. "Daddy!" cried Emily, tears in her eyes, as she threw herself into his arms. But the relief was short-lived. The guards, realizing the situation, rushed towards them. Marcus shouted, "Run!" A frantic race ensued through the warehouse. Crates fell, shards of wood flew, but Jonathan, Emily, and Marcus managed to reach a secondary exit. The fresh air outside burned their lungs, but freedom was near. Outside, Jonathan hugged Emily, his heart pounding, while Marcus checked to make sure no one was following them. "Thank you," Jonathan said, his voice shaking. "I don't know how I'll ever be able to thank you." Marcus shook his head. "You don't need to thank me. You just believed in me." But just when they thought they were safe, a noise behind them made Jonathan and Marcus turn. A masked figure stood in the shadows, watching them. Breathless and heart-pounding, Jonathan held Emily close while Marcus remained on guard. The masked figure remained motionless a few meters away, watching them with an eerie coldness. The icy night wind made her black cloak billow, making it appear as if she had emerged from the shadows herself. "Who are you?" Jonathan shouted, his voice trembling but authoritative. The figure didn't respond. It took a measured step forward, finally revealing a pistol gleaming in the moonlight. Marcus instinctively stepped back, placing a protective hand on Emily. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The figure finally spoke, his voice cold and calm, "You don't know who you're dealing with. If you move, she will suffer." Jonathan felt panic rising. The mere presence of this person revealed that their mission was not over and that the kidnappers had even more dangerous allies. But there was no question of backing down. "Listen to me," he said firmly, "I will do anything to protect my daughter. But let us go, and we will never seek you back." The masked figure hesitated for a moment, then slowly lowered the weapon. "Very well, this once. But consider this a warning." She disappeared into the darkness as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving Jonathan, Emily, and Marcus trembling but relieved. Marcus then turned to Jonathan. "That wasn't just another guard. Someone else has been watching us all along. We'll have to be careful." Jonathan, holding Emily close, realized this ordeal was only the beginning. Their mission to save his daughter was over, but the real danger might have only just begun. Back at Jonathan's huge, glass-walled penthouse, the air felt heavier than before. Emily was safe for now, but her father's worried gaze betrayed his thoughts. Who was this mysterious figure and why was she interested in them? Marcus sat on the couch, his elbows on his knees, thinking. "This person has known our plan from the beginning," he said, his voice low. "They knew we would come, and they let us go, for now." Jonathan hugged Emily, his mind racing. But why? Who would want to hurt her? Marcus hesitated, then pulled a small black notebook from his pocket. "My brother isn't just involved in the kidnapping. He's part of a much larger network, one that has been manipulating and threatening wealthy families for years. Your daughter was targeted because of your position. Emily, still trembling, asked, but then, why did they release me? Marcus shook his head. To test us. They want to see if we can fight back, if we're worthy of playing their game. Jonathan felt a cold anger rise within him. The fear of losing his daughter was turning into implacable determination. Then we will show them that we are not prey, he said, his voice trembling but resolute. They spent the night developing a plan. Marcus explained in detail how the network worked and the vulnerabilities no one else had noticed. Jonathan realized that without Marcus's intelligence and boldness, he would never have stood a chance. As dawn broke on the horizon, Jonathan realized one thing: to protect his daughter, he would have to plunge into a world of secrets, danger, and betrayal, a world he had never imagined. The next day, Jonathan and Marcus decided not to wait any longer. Every minute could be crucial if the network decided to strike again. Equipped with secure phones, cameras, and a few gadgets Jonathan had been able to procure, they began tracking the movements of the organization's accomplices. We need to find the root of this network before they try anything more daring, Marcus said, scanning a screen showing surveillance footage. Everyone has their patterns, and we're going to use them against them. Jonathan, though wealthy and accustomed to control in the business world, realized that in this fight, money was only one tool among many. Intelligence, discretion, and above all, speed were required. They began by following a key contact in the network, a man Marcus knew well. They saw him enter a dilapidated building on the other side of town. Marcus whispered, "This is our first lead. We have to be discreet. One mistake, and all is lost." With perfect coordination, they observed every movement, noting schedules, entrances and exits, guards, and suspicious behavior. Every detail was recorded, analyzed, and used to build their action plan. But as they delved deeper into this dangerous investigation, Jonathan realized that the network wasn't just a group of isolated criminals. It was a well-oiled machine, capable of predicting the movements of those trying to stop them. As they wrapped up their first day of surveillance, an alert on one of Jonathan's phones caught their attention, a new message, anonymous, simple, and chilling. "You think you're in control, but you're only just getting started." Jonathan felt a shiver run down his spine. The network already knew their strategy. The game had barely begun, and the real challenge was about to reveal itself. It was long after nightfall when Jonathan, Marcus, and Emily thought they'd have a moment of respite. But the calm was deceptive. Hurried footsteps sounded outside the building, and shadows slid swiftly across the streetlight-lit walls. "They found us," Marcus whispered, his eyes wide. "Get ready." Jonathan grabbed a metal stick to defend himself while Emily cowered behind him. The attackers entered through the back door, masked and armed. There were more of them than expected, and their coordination demonstrated that they were professionals. Marcus threw a small light to disorient them, and Jonathan took advantage of this moment to create a diversion. The attackers, surprised by the billionaire and the boy's unexpected strategy, hesitated for a moment. This short period of time was enough for Marcus to guide Emily to the emergency exit. "Quick!" Marcus shouted. Emily ran, tears in her eyes, while Jonathan held off a few attackers with his precise movements and determination. Every second seemed to last an eternity, every move could be fatal. Finally, after an intense and chaotic fight, Jonathan and Marcus managed to round up Emily and take refuge in a secure vehicle. The attackers disappeared into the darkness, but their presence left a clear threat: the network would stop at nothing. Jonathan, panting, looked at Marcus. "We can't just react. We have to strike before they strike again." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. And to do that, we need to find out who's behind this, and why they're targeting us." The journey to uncover the truth and protect Emily had only just begun. But one thing was certain: Jonathan and Marcus were now bound together by danger, trust, and a mission beyond anything they had imagined. After several days of careful surveillance and analysis, Marcus and Jonathan began to put the pieces of the puzzle together. The clues led them to an old industrial warehouse on the outskirts of town, a place that appeared abandoned to the public, but was actually a nerve center of the network. "It's here," Marcus murmured, pointing at the dark, imposing structure. All suspicious movements converge on this building. If we want to put an end to their plans, this is the place to act. Jonathan felt a surge of adrenaline. Every decision had to be precise. One false step and Emily, or even they themselves, could be in danger. He took a deep breath and nodded. All right. We'll find out what they're planning and stop them before it's too late. They crept to the back of the building, scouting the entrances and guards. Marcus took out a small drone he'd tinkered with to get an aerial view inside. The footage revealed several secure rooms, armed men, and, in the center, an office where someone was directing operations. That's our target, Marcus murmured, his eyes fixed on the screen. Whoever's at that desk is the mastermind behind this. We need to find a way in without alerting the others. Jonathan thought quickly. We'll create a diversion at the main entrance, then enter through the basement. That should give us the element of surprise. Just as they were preparing to take action, a chill ran through Jonathan. The masked figure that had threatened them earlier was there, watching from a high catwalk. It seemed ready to intervene if necessary. But this time, Jonathan knew they couldn't back down. Tensions rose. The final confrontation with the network was approaching, and every second counted. Emily's fate and Jonathan and Marcus's safety now depended on their courage, their strategy, and their ability to avoid being trapped by those who thought they were always one step ahead of them. Jonathan and Marcus silently entered the warehouse basement. The air was heavy and tense, and every footstep echoed on the concrete floor. The shadows of the guards moving through the corridors forced them to stay pressed against the walls, their hearts pounding. In the center, behind a bulletproof glass window, they saw the mastermind of the network, an elegant man with a hard face, sitting at a desk cluttered with plans and files. He was manipulating surveillance screens, completely unaware of Jonathan and Marcus's presence. Marcus whispered, "He's the leader. If he falls, the network will collapse." Jonathan nodded, clenching his fists. He knew this confrontation wouldn't be easy. Every decision had to be perfect. With a discreet signal, Marcus activated a small sonic blast upstairs, drawing the main guards towards the diversion. Taking advantage of the chaos, Jonathan and Marcus quickly advanced towards the central room. The network's mastermind finally looked up, surprised to see two intruders appear. "Who are you to challenge me?" he snapped, his voice cold. "Those who will no longer allow themselves to be threatened." Jonathan replied determinedly. An intense fight ensued. Marcus incapacitated the remaining guards while Jonathan confronted the network's mastermind directly. With courage and strategy, they managed to subdue the man, securely tying him up and disabling his surveillance devices. Jonathan, panting, turned to Marcus. "We did it, but we still need to protect Emily and make sure the rest of the network is taken down." Marcus nodded. "Once he's handed over to the authorities, the network will be dismantled. And no one will ever be able to threaten us again." But one last danger remained. The masked figure who had warned them earlier reappeared from the shadows. This time, she removed her mask, revealing her identity, a former security agent infiltrated by the network, who had decided to help them after realizing that Jonathan and Marcus had the courage and ingenuity to do so. "You did well," she said, a slight smile playing on her lips. "Now let's finish this job, together." In the early morning, the city seemed peaceful, but behind the scenes, justice had struck. Jonathan, Marcus, and Emily watched from a safe distance as law enforcement surrounded the warehouse. The network's mastermind and his accomplices were now in the hands of the police, their criminal activities exposed. Emily ran into her father's arms, her face beaming. "Dad, is it all over?" she asked, tears of relief in her eyes. Jonathan hugged her, his heart still pounding with adrenaline. "Yes, darling. It's all over. And it's all thanks to Marcus." Marcus, humble and slightly embarrassed, shook his head. "I just did what I could. You trusted me, and we succeeded together." The masked figure, the former undercover agent, appeared at their side. "You have proven that courage and determination can overcome even the most dangerous enemies. Emily is safe, and this network will no longer be able to harm anyone. Jonathan smiled gratefully. You saved my daughter and my family. I can never thank you enough. Marcus nodded. Sometimes true wealth lies not in money, but in loyalty, courage, and trust. A few weeks later, life returned to normal. Emily returned to school, Jonathan managed his affairs with a newfound sense of prudence and responsibility, and Marcus found a privileged place in the Reed family, recognized for his courage and intelligence. The network was destroyed, the enemies neutralized, and an unbreakable friendship was born between two men from completely different worlds. The ordeal had been dangerous, but it had revealed the strength of the human spirit and the power of mutual trust. As the sun rose over the city, Jonathan, Emily, and Marcus stood together, ready to face the future. An adventure that began with a desperate rescue ended with a new beginning, stronger, more united, and more invincible than ever.